I go in this direction. So I'm Anthony Hunt, I'm the leader of the council.
I'm Richard Clark, I'm the Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Children's, Families and Education.
I'm Peter Jones, I'm the Cabinet Member for Corporate Governance and Performance.
I'm Mandy Owen, Cabinet Member for the Environment.
David Daniels, Cabinet Member for Adult Services and Housing.
Fiona Cross, Cabinet Member for Communities.
Jo Gordon, Cabinet Member for Economy, Skills Regeneration.
Sue Morgan, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Nigel Aurelius, Deputy Chief Executive.
Well, thank you everyone. I don't believe there are any apologies from members because we're all here. Stephen Vickers, the Chief Executive, gives his apology today and Nigel's standing in for him, and we're also joined by officers to advise and to give their reports. So that takes us to agenda item 3, which is declarations of interest. Dennis?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, my advice is with regard to the Maindy Primary School report. If you are a governor at the school, of you or anyone with whom you live, or any person with whom you have a close personal association, attends or works at the school, you would have an interest to declare. That interest would be prejudicial unless you are an LEA-appointed governor. I understand that Councillor Sue Morgan is a LEA-appointed governor at the school, and that is a personal interest only and not prejudicial. If I could ask Councillor Morgan to confirm that interest.
I can confirm, and also to say that I do have friends whose children attend the school, but not a close family relationship.
Okay, thank you, Leader. I'm not aware of any other interests.
Thank you, Lurton. Sue, anything to add there? If not, we can move on to item 4, which is the confirmation of the Cabinet minutes from the 16th of January. Is everyone happy with those as an accurate record? We happy to confirm those then? Show of hands. That's confirmed. Item 5 then is updates on actions. Anything we need to note here?
Nothing to add to what is on the action sheet. We'll complete the actions and advise Cabinet between now and the next meeting.
On the third action point there of the informing of Welsh Government of the T-Coke project, that's in hand. Right, are we happy then to move on to agenda item 6, which is the budget 24-25 and the medium-term financial plan? If I hand over initially to Sue and then to Nigel.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, happy to bring the report on the budget for 24-25 and our medium-term financial plan this morning. The general headlines on the budget are that this is an affordable budget for 24-25 within the budget constraints that we undoubtedly face, with thankfully minimal service implications. And I just want to remind members who will have seen these reports in the preparation of the budget over numerous occasions, the hard work that's gone into reducing that budget gap that we initially faced. Colleagues will have seen how that's been tackled in a very well managed and thought through way with minimal implications for our services, and for that we're very grateful. I'm also grateful to our scrutiny committee for their work in considering the budget and the helpful recommendations which are referenced in this report. I think it's fair to say that the contributions that we had from the public on our budget consultation were also very helpful. It's clear that people are concerned about the prospect of a council tax increase, as are we all. But it was also reassuring to see that those suggestions that were being made about how the council can make better use of its resources fitted squarely within what we already do. This isn't a council that, you know, sort of throws money at mayoral cars and those sorts of things. And many of the suggestions were the helpful sorts of things that are focus on efficiency. I would begin to say a ruthless focus on efficiency that this council is developing are already taking account of. So grateful for that. And I just would remind colleagues, I'm sure we don't need reminding because we are again grateful for this, that while we are increasing our council tax by 4.95%, that increase is the joint lowest in Wales, and protecting hard-working families who are struggling with the cost of living crisis, which I believe to be a largely Tory-induced crisis. We hear the phrase Rishi's recession bandied around rather a lot, and we all know the pressures of increased costs on our own family budgets. So we know that the council is facing those pressures too. And I'm confident that the public won't be fooled by Sunak's closing down sale when he starts throwing around the little tax incentives either. They would be a drop in the bucket compared to the pressures that families are facing. But this council's managing in a measured and an appropriate way. And turning to our medium-term financial plan, we should not be in any doubt of the challenges ahead. We do face an over 35 million pressure leading up to the end of the financial year in 29. That's no small thing for us to be tackling, and we will need to continue in the same measured, thought-through way that we've always continued, starting this next year's budget process almost as soon as we conclude this one, which is the way that we do things around here. My thanks especially to Dave Lilly and to Nigel yet again for the work that they've done, but to every officer and every member of this council that manages resources in this responsible and thought-through way. I would give my thanks, and it's based on that attitude that I'm confident we will face the challenges ahead. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Executive Member. I mean, I won't labour the detail, particularly in this report. Members of the Cabinet are well versed in the progress of the budget. Section 3 basically just takes you through the history of 24-25 budget and how the various reports have built up to the position we're in. In 3.8, I do bring out the latest scrutiny recommendations, which we can agree with. One was about contextualising the use of reserves in 24-25 compared to the exceptional circumstances in 23-24. And I think that's actually something in the budget we should reflect on and, commend ourselves that although we put in quite a significant amount of recurring reserves in 23-24, we have not repeated that in 24-25 in terms of any great significance. And the other was the public consultation, which the Executive Member has referred to. 3.10 then takes you through what the actual budget provides, much of which has been brought up by the Executive Member, but you've got there how much we've had to provide for pay and inflation, the like-for-like funding uplift for the school community of 4.3%, Cranbridge Special Schools, and the various other resources that are there. A budget with, as has been said, minimal service implications, and largely because we started this budget last February. No report, of course, from Finance is ever complete without bringing out the risks, and they're there in 4, and are largely ones we've been through in the past. And then the last section of the report is the medium-term financial plan, which does have a significant gap to be addressed over the next 4 years. I would say, though, that at the moment, in terms of the uncertainty at both national levels, both at a UK level and at a Welsh level, actually crafting an MTFP is challenging in those circumstances. And whilst we will plan on this level, and we will start in earnest as soon as the budget is agreed next week, we will hope that the assumed national funding is at the worst case end here, and will increase over the medium term period, which could make a significant difference. In terms of what we're going to be looking at as we move into the stage of Apollo for 25-6 and beyond, they're brought out in 5.6, and as we did last year, we're going to start, as I say, from the 28th of February, the day after the budget's set. There's a table on reserves and balances, and that's largely it, Leader. We now go to Council next Tuesday, and the papers were out yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Just wanted to start by thanking Nigel, Sue, Cabinet members and officers here for the prudent and calm approach across the Council. And we've been hard at work at this since last February, so it is a real 12-month process. In fact, I think next year we're aiming for a 13-month process because we've already started discussing 25-26 already. That doesn't make it an easy situation, but I think it does help protect vital services, help us keep council tax as low as possible, and help preserve the key preventative services that can sometimes suffer when short-term decisions have to be made. And I think overall it helps avoid the kind of situation we've seen elsewhere across the UK, especially in many councils in England, which are really having to have a short-term approach to get themselves out of a very difficult situation. So as I say, it doesn't make the situation easy, but it does help us, I think, give us the best chance to set the best possible budget we can. I think it's important to emphasise in that context that we're not just talking about council funding here. Sometimes that can sound very dry. This is about the funding of key services, from social care for vulnerable and elderly people, disabled people, children's services for children either in our care or on the fringes of the care system who need our support or who have special additional needs. We're talking about funding for schools, for the teaching and support staff in our schools who provide such a vital service and do such a good job of helping educate and care for our young people. We're talking about important environmental services that people see on the street and that make a real difference to communities. And we're talking about value community services from libraries, play and all these other services that make a real difference and help prevent some of the acute end spend by building stronger communities. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about balancing a council budget. And when we talk about the importance of balancing a budget, it's because if we didn't, all those services would be at risk. So I think it's important that we explain this because sometimes it seems like a very dry sort of discussion about balance sheets, and it's not. At the end of the day, it's about those services and how we protect them. I agree very much with Sue's comments that a change in macroeconomic policy is needed for public services across the United Kingdom. We've had 14 years now of cuts, and when you're cutting after cutting, you do reach the bone and you do risk damaging those services and damaging the fabric of our communities. I think we've gone far beyond that point now. So a change in macroeconomic strategy at a UK Treasury level is especially necessary, I think, to give public services, those who rely on them and those who work in them, a fairer future. I would like to end by thanking two groups of people. First, Welsh Government for working with us. It's not been an easy set of discussions leading up to the budget this year. I'm sure Rebecca Evans, as the Finance Minister, probably is sick of the sound of my voice. We've had, some good constructive conversations with us, though. It is good, even in a difficult situation where we can't always get everything we want, to have a government that talks with us, not just talks at us. And certainly that's something that I'm appreciative for, especially when I talk to council leaders across the border who don't have that kind of relationship. So that's a credit to Rebecca, to Mark Drakeford as First Minister and their ministers. It doesn't make the problem go away. I think it does help us approach it in a calm and adult way. And lastly, I'd just like to say I've thanked Cabinet members already, but also scrutiny members. I think the budget being a 12-month process is something that we've really built on over the last few years. I know in Nigel's time as Treasurer, and I know this is going to be his last budget that he put through Council next week, but that's really appreciated how that process has grown, so that we don't just consult them at the end of the process now. We try and consult members across the whole process, including before proposals are made. So that's real, I think, pre-scrutiny in action, and that really adds value to the budget process. So I'd like to thank Nigel and Sue for their contribution to that, but also scrutiny members who've made that contribution. Anything more before we move to the recommendations, or are we happy to move to those? Okay. The recommendations are at paragraph 8.1. This is, from Cabinet perspective, but not from a Council perspective, the end of a very long process. So it's recommended that the final proposals outlined are approved or recommended to Council for approval as the final part of the 24-25 budget. That's at Council next Tuesday. Secondly, that the proposed funding approach regarding the redundancy costs associated with the identified mitigations is approved. Thirdly, that the revised medium-term financial plan is noted. And fourthly, that the reserves position is noted. Are we happy to agree? Thank you, colleagues. Okay, so next we move on to agenda item 7, which is the flood risk management strategy. And if I hand over to Mandy initially.
Thank you, Leader. The report before you is an update of the Council's local flood risk management plan, which was produced in 2014. This strategy sets out how we will manage flood risk across Torfaen and includes the strategic direction we will undertake for the next 6 years. The strategy needs to be approved by Welsh Government and be published in March 24. It focuses on local sources of flood risk, but also considers and acknowledges other flood risk sources, which include larger watercourses, sewers and the sea. Welsh Government National Strategy for Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management in Wales sets out that over 245,000 properties in Wales are at risk of flooding from rivers, sea and surface water, with almost 400 properties also at risk of coastal erosion. National strategy findings state that as climate changes, it can be expected that these risks can increase, more severe floods increase and become more frequent, along with rising sea levels and faster rates of erosion from the coast. As stated in the report, we have experienced several flooding events over the last 40 years in Torfaen. The last major flood occurred in Cwmbran back in May 2014. This was a result of a localised extreme weather event and extreme rainfall, which has been assessed as a greater than 1 in 1,000 year event and caused internal flooding to 198 properties and 2 supermarkets. The strategy has considered how susceptible all areas in Torfaen are to flooding and the influence climate change has. It contains an action plan which details the direction of the strategy and how the actions will be completed. The plan will be updated annually, giving details of actions completed and ones in progress. It will also give us the option of adding actions and will identify any unfeasible actions. The updated action plan will be published on the Council's website. So the key priorities of the strategy are improving our understanding and communication of risk, preparedness and building resilience, prioritising investment to the most at-risk communities, preventing more people becoming exposed to risk, and providing an effective and sustained response. The period of consultation was carried out with a public consultation for 9 weeks from July to September in 23. Findings were primarily positive and the proposed actions were widely accepted. We also shared the strategy with all local RMAs, including NRW, WLGA, Welsh Water, and was also shared with council officers internally along with PDF sessions. It also went to the Cleaner Scrutiny Committee in December. The recommendations are attached in appendices of the report, along with the updated action plan, which incorporated the recommendations. It must be noted that the action plan contained within the LFRMS does rely on Welsh Government funding within the Welsh Government Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Grant. It has been guaranteed for the past 5 years, but there's no guarantee that that will be guaranteed for the lifetime of the strategy. So there's a lot of detail within the plan and the report and appendices, but Carys Williams, our Flood Risk Officer, and Mark Thomas, our Deputy Director of Highways, are here to answer any questions members may have. I'm not sure whether they want to add anything further.
Are you happy then? Any questions members have got on the strategy? All seems sound to me. Anything you'd like to add before we move to the recommendation, Buck?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, just an update really. We found that the opportunity to go in front of the cleaner scrutiny was very, very worthwhile, very useful. And we picked up quite a few actions there. One of the major ones, I suppose, or 2 major ones that we had was ensuring that the proposed bylaws don't conflict with anything that a revised local development plan is doing, and make sure that those are tied in together. Work has gone ahead to ensure that there is no conflict there. But also engagement as well, in terms of there's a commitment that we've given at this scrutiny meeting that we would actually attend evening meetings with those affected communities as well. So we've, as part of that sort of consultation process, we have given an undertaking to be more hands-on and available for any affected communities should they have any worries or concerns.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, if we move then to the recommendations, if I scroll back up to them, just looking through the appendix. The recommendations are at paragraph 8.1 that Cabinet approves the strategy and authorises submission to Welsh Government. Are we happy to agree? Great, and thank you for officers for your work on this. Obviously, flood risk management is something that we hope never has to sort of be tested to its limits, but it's something that's very important for communities because the impacts of flooding are massive to people's houses especially. Thank you. Right, we move then to item 8, which is the award of the insurance contract, and over to Sue.
Thank you, Leader. Very little to say on this other than, again, to thank officers for the work in securing what looks to be a very effective and cost-effective framework agreement. And I'll hand over to Nigel.
Oh, hi.
Beg your pardon. Sorry, Wendy. I'm handing to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks for opportunity to present this report today. The main reason, obviously, that we needed to come to Cabinet today is because of the value of the contract. Over 5 years would be over £5 million, and if over 7 years, over £7 million. Just briefly, our existing contracts are ending at the 31st of March, so we had to go out for a tender exercise, and the results are presented in section 4. And like I just said, given the value that we need decision from Cabinet today. We hold a comprehensive schedule of insurance that protects the council from unforeseen losses and liability claims. It does involve a degree of self-insurance, but a significant amount of the risk is transferred to insurance underwriters through insurance policies. And in accordance with contract standing orders, insurance policies are tendered at regular intervals. And whilst it's not possible to enter into a firm long-term contract for insurance premiums, it is common practice for councils to enter into what we call long-term agreements with insurance underwriters, as this removes the administrative burden of retendering annually and promotes a degree of stability. So the insurance policies have been procured competitively and in accordance with the Public Contracts Regulations 2015 via a YPO framework, and all the economic operators listed on the framework were invited. And it was all done via the Proactis procurement portal. Just quickly then, in 4.2 we just outlined the lots for the tenders, and this covers all the policies that we went out to tender for. Lot 1 was material damage and computer, so that includes all our building assets. Lot 2, combined liability, including crime, so that would include our public liability, employers' liability insurance. Lot 3 was motor. Lot 4, engineering and inspection insurance, and Lot 5 was group personal accident and travel and school journeys. The evaluation was done 40% on price, 60% on quality. We asked for tenderers to quote on the basis of a 3+2 long-term agreement with an option then for a further 1+1 year, so it could potentially be a 7-year agreement. 4.6 just shows how the tenderers did and how we've awarded each of the lots. So it went to each of the highest scoring tenderer for each of the lots, except on lot 5. So table 4.7 shows the annual financial costs of these awards, with a total of £1,013,904,000 for 24-25. That doesn't include insurance premium tax. This is an additional 12% on top. It's non-recoverable, and it's always built into the budgets on that basis. So everyone's been consulted on this that needed to be, and everything is in alignment with procurement regulations. The biggest implication is a move of insurers for liability and motor, but we'll obviously work with Marsh, who are our insurance brokers, and the insurers there to make sure that that's a smooth transfer process. So yes, just recommended, please, that you award the contract to the successful bidders as per table 4.6.
Thanks, Sue?
Yes, thank you, Wendy, for all the work that's gone into this. I mean, I think when you go through the schedule and we see the sheer range of the insurance risks that we're mitigating through this contract, then it becomes more obvious exactly why this is such a lot of work, but so worth doing. Thank you.
Thanks. I think you've answered the questions I had. Lot 5 obviously is the one that's not gone to the highest score, but that's because the tenderer there wouldn't award that in isolation. Is that the case? Wouldn't accept that in isolation?
Yeah, that's right. If you look at the financial summary, it was the smallest financial. So if they didn't see it, it was in their interest to just take that one on its own.
And the other question, I think, which you answered as well, which is in terms of financial implications, this has all been built into the budget going forwards. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, colleagues? If not, the recommendations at 8.1. It's recommended that Cabinet awards contracts for insurance policy premiums to tenderers 2 and 3 as per table 4.6 with a 1-year total cost of £1,013,904.16 and plus insurance premium tax. We happy to agree? That's carried. Thank you for your work on this, Wendy, and thanks to all the other officers involved. Right, so we move on then to item number 9, which is the Maindy Primary New School, the award of the construction phase. Shall I hand over to Richard initially on this one?
Thank you, Leader. Members will be aware of the history of the site. It's recited in the report how the costs varied from our initial conception to being out of reach almost in a report coming previously to you back in 2022. We have completed the original stages of the construction, pre-construction stages even, and we are now looking to go to full construction. We have revised costs, and I thank the teams for the hard work that they've done with that, the school for being part of that and what they were happy to end up with, and the contractors themselves. But it is still worth remembering that this is the replacement of the school with a new school, a childcare and flying start facility. And as you'll see in 4.2, it will achieve a net carbon building with low embodied carbon, and it goes into more detail than I'm going to in the report. The report doesn't mention, but it has been raised elsewhere, about the movement of traffic on this site. I think the current design will ameliorate existing problems. It won't remedy it. The school is where it is on one of our estates, which has high parking. But what we have done and will continue to do is push active travel routes, and with the majority of students coming from walking distance, then we would emphasise with parents and others that it would be ideal as part of an active travel route to go there. But primarily today is about the awarding of the construction phase, and those matters can be dealt with elsewhere. So I would ask you to support this and grant the awards to the original contractor that's done the pre-construction, and I'll hand over for Jason for everything I've forgotten and anything I didn't include.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I don't think there's anything you forgot at all, actually. All I was going to add, I think just to reiterate that there's been a significant amount of work done on value engineering following a significant hike in costs last year, and a lot of work was taking place to really value engineer and bring costs back to a manageable amount. Obviously, the risk if we don't award contract today, there is a risk that any delay could increase costs going forward. Again, alluding to that significant amount of work that's taken place to value engineer. And also just to point out that within the report we mentioned that there's a contingency built in of £221,000 as well within the project. I don't think there's anything else to add. Obviously, the value is £14,368,811. Hence, it come into Cabinet for approval today. Thank you.
Okay, anything to add, Steve? Are you happy?
No, I don't need to add anything. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thanks. Thank you to all of you for your hard work on another project to renew another primary school. Obviously, you mentioned the trials we've had with increased costs there, as anyone who's tried to get a house extension or any kind of engineering construction project has faced over the last few years, and it's welcome that there's a proposal now to take this forward and to, as you say, mitigate some of the concerns that have been expressed. Any other questions on this before we move to the recommendations? It's recommended at 8.1 that Cabinet approves the construction phase for the replacement Maindy Primary School, Cwmbran, to the previously appointed main contractor in the sum of £14,368,811. Are we happy to approve? That's carried, and I look forward to seeing the work go on and to welcoming children to their new school building. That concludes Cabinet today. Thank you, members. Thank you,